So are we looking at the first indications of Alberto starting to form across the Gulf? I think it's way too early. Please, before you light me up, this is just some analysis. I don't really think it's going to happen at this point, but signs are pointing that, look, things could be active this season and we might be starting to see some things change. Across the Caribbean, temperatures are way above average for this time of year by a good 2 to 4.5 degrees, and it's warm across the entire Atlantic basin. And then, here's one thing I do want to show you before we get into the next couple of maps. No tropical activity expected from the Hurricane Center over the next 7 days. Beyond that, well, we'll see, right? But I do think it's worth showing you this anyway. Lower pressures trying to develop here across the Gulf. Don't confuse low pressure with lower pressures. And I think that's lower surface pressure. And I think that's going to help develop some thunderstorms. This is the European picking up on that idea. The GFS is going to go gangbusters and try to spin up a tropical system. And it's going to try to give us Alberto as we head into the 13th and 14th. Now, would I believe this? No way. Okay, and here's why. The GFS has an extreme bias for spinning up tropical systems prematurely, but it's trying to do it. Okay, you go back a couple of model runs, telling a completely different story, but still trying to develop something and move it off the East Coast. And even last night, it was trying to do so right here, moving across Florida, then out to sea into the Atlantic. And the only reason that I might be biting on this would be because we're going to have our low here and a front kind of draped like this as we get around the 10th. That could enter the North Gulf sometime around the 11th and 12th. So now you're going to have this old frontal boundary here. The upper winds start to relax a little bit. So if you're going to see a favorable time for development, I would think it would be somewhere here as you get thunderstorms developing on the tail end of this front. Now, again, the Europeans not spinning up a storm. You're looking way out in time. I just say watch it at this point. So if you like this kind of content, I do like to look ahead in the future. I like to take a look down the road. I hope you'll subscribe and come back. Let's talk about the heat that's building across the west and this cold here. I'm going to call it cold because in the upper levels, it's cold. You've almost got a 546 height line here across parts of Canada moving southeast across the Great Lakes. So some very chilly air aloft. That's going to result in some below normal temperatures at the surface. We're talking about 50s around the Great Lakes for high temperatures, maybe even some 40s if you don't get some sunshine. But across the southwest into Texas, it's going to get hot, and it could stay hot here for several days. In fact, some of the models, once we get rid of the rain and kind of the nastiness in the northwest, ridging all the way up into British Columbia, into Alberta, so places like Grand Prairie up into Alberta, Calgary, we could get downright hot up in here, and that heat will continue to just bake the southwest maybe into next week. Across the east, it's been relentless with reinforcing cool shot after cool shot, and that might try to relax late next week. Again, that might open the door to something happening here in the tropics if we can get some ridging over top here. Now, this is kind of weird, right? That's going to really mess things up with that cutoff low with any tropical activity. But again, we're looking at the very end of the model range here. Let's talk about temperatures. If you think it's hot now, look at this. We're looking at all the way to the 12th. I mean, I was just kind of running through some of the models here. Here we go all the way. This is the 5th, the 6th. Look at the triple digit heat. The 7th, the 8th. You get the idea. A little bit of a break there. Either way, the idea is for it to stay quite warm across the southwest. Now, this evening, we've got some big storms blowing up here across parts of Minnesota, Iowa. That severe threat will shift to the east tonight, and I think we'll see that here from Minnesota down to Iowa, even Missouri. The Storm Prediction Center has updated this through the afternoon with an area of enhanced thunderstorm chances across parts of Oklahoma. And we were looking at some of this earlier today, and it's interesting to see how they've now narrowed that in, and we're starting to see those storms fire up. Some of the short-range models picking up on that convection really going through the evening hours. There could be some tornadoes here. Also, even up into Minnesota, too, where we've got some wind shear. Significant tornado pretty high across parts of Oklahoma where we're going to see those storms develop. I know it's high here, but look, that there's no storms developing to the south. If they were, it would clearly be one heck of a night. But across Oklahoma, that looks like where the storms will develop up into Kansas and then eventually into parts of Missouri. Some of these storms could have some really big hail with them, some damaging winds, and that also could be said even further to the north and east here into parts of Illinois and eventually into Wisconsin. And this cluster here may start to bow out and continue to roll through the overnight hours into places like Texarkana, then in south into Louisiana heading into tomorrow morning. Further east, we do have a few showers here working through the Cumberland Plateau into the Appalachians overnight. A lot of this kind of falling apart. Back here's the big line of rain showers As we head into Wednesday, some storms try to get going here from the Appalachians northeast into Pennsylvania and then up around the Great Lakes. Some storms could get a little strong here from Michigan down into Indiana and Ohio, especially tomorrow afternoon. A lot of dynamics here with our upper low kind of swinging through. So you've got a little bit of wind shear going on. So hail, damaging winds. I don't think you could completely rule out an isolated tornado, but that's not the primary threat, I think. And then as we head into late to Wednesday night into early Thursday morning, some of that moving into Pennsylvania, also here into the deep south as our front drops to the south. And then we start to cool down as our wind flow changes from the northwest. We've not seen this in a while. This is one of the quietest days, at least from the Storm Prediction Center, map-wise, that they've put out in quite a while. Just some general thunderstorms across the east and maybe even parts of Texas. As we head into Thursday, hot across the south as we head through Wednesday, cooler to the north just because we'll have more cloud cover here. And there's the look at your rain. Moving east, here comes some cooler weather, also clouds, damp, and a little bit wet from time to time. Not a complete washout, but showers will be around. If it's your first time visiting, if you've made it this far, that means I hope you've enjoyed the content. Maybe you're just here to ridicule. I don't know. But if you made it this far, I hope you'll subscribe. It really helps the channel. I'm Travis Roberts. Thanks for coming by. I'm a former TV chief meteorologist. I've been out of the TV business now for over 5 years now. But I love forecasting. If you like it, this kind of stuff, I hope you'll come back. I'll see you next time. Have a great night.